Hey guys, we are back for another year of Coast to Coast Lifestyles, and we're super excited to talk to you guys about our last episode was kind of predicting this year. Our numbers had not come out yet for 2024. So today we get to take a look back at how last year went. Heather, I think you can quickly share kind of what our predictions were and then where you guys landed. And then, yeah, I can wrap up with how we're looking over here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's been a quite the fun last year. There are things that went totally as predicted, some things that totally did not go as predicted. But of last year, Cassie and I really kind of saw eye to eye on most of the predictions. So I just kind of clumped them into our three core predictions that we had. One of which was that interest rates would get into the high fives. I think we all know that that did not end up happening. There were a lot of unexpected data that ended up coming out. The election, just a lot of complications ended up happening, and we never quite dipped below that. We did get into the high sixes, or I'm sorry, the low sixes, but not quite into the fives. And then we were seeing that a lot of sellers were going to be really hesitant to sell. So we're going to have super low inventory because a lot of people ended up refining or buying during the COVID era where interest rates got down to like 2.9%. So a lot of buyers were going to be hesitant, or I'm sorry, sellers were going to be hesitant, but then buyers were going to start seeing this as kind of a norm and they were going to come to the table and still be super active. And I can't quite speak to your area, Cassie, but for me, those last 2 points of hesitant sellers and active buyers was very, very true. No, our interest rates did not go down, but we still had very, very, very low inventory because sellers were too afraid to lose their interest rate. But buyers, between businesses coming back into the office full time and uh, buyers being like, well, I still need to make moves. I need to upgrade, downgrade. I need to, buy a house for my child, or the child needs to buy a house. Like that stuff still happens. Life still happens. So buyers were crazy busy, as busy as they were the year prior, pretty much. And but sellers were just so hesitant. So we ended up seeing a lot of competition. Now, when we're looking at kind of like the cost of waiting over the year, so for our local area, East Side Single Family Homes, December 2023, we saw a median home price of 1.44 million. So 1,440,000. And this last December, we saw a median home price of 1,545,000. So that's an increase of $105,000. And the real kicker is that interest rates were kind of the same. They were only 0.1% off from December of last year. So when we're looking at the cost of waiting, if you're like, hey, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop, sure, they dropped 0.1%, but we're still seeing almost $600 a month that you would be paying more if you bought this year than last year, which is equivalent to just shy of about $7,000 a year of your mortgage. So yeah, it's the cost of waiting is still really crazy. You want to, like we've said before, like the best time to buy a house is yesterday, next best time is today. It rings true, especially with an uncertain market. Regardless, you're going to end up appreciating in the long term. So yeah, that's kind of like the quick and dirty version of what I have when looking back at 2024. So 2025 will be really fun to kind of see how everything goes.
Well, I can only imagine. Don't even want to imagine what the cost of waiting would have been had interest rates gotten well into the fives. Like
Oh
your
God.
appreciation could have been, I mean, through the roof. I mean,
Oh
still
yeah.
amazing. But I mean, can you imagine like it's good for the buyers actually that didn't happen, or you would have had like runaway and appreciation.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love your point. So about basically like life goes on, but we did kind of have a few buyers during when those interest rates were super low that kind of expedited their plans to buy So then they weren't there, and we had that kind of dip in activity. And then we predicted kind of more a stabilized and people getting off the fence. The thing that's interesting about our market is natural disaster excluded. We actually are a little slower to move typically, and we kind of trend behind everybody else. So we're, don't have as much volatility. But yeah, so I am actually going to show real quick this was kind of what the interest rates did. We did predict mid fives, and it actually got down into the low. Actually, the year low was 6.11. So I thought this was interesting over the last year. That was the range. But yeah, so we had an interesting, can you see my screen?
I can. Yeah, it's small, but I can see it.
Okay. Sorry about that. I should have adjusted it. But anyway, so our new listings, we kind of had sorry, that's actually 2023. My report does not show me 1 year. So we actually kind of had a drop off as far as like our number of listings. I think some people came on the market around here thinking that they could still just name their price, and that wasn't the case. And so some people have decided to just rent their house for the time being or stay put because that inflation just wasn't, sorry, this is the right slide. That inflation just wasn't exactly what they were anticipating. And so our closed sales, again, this is kind of how we started the beginning of the year. That kind of came back up. So basically I think we just weeded out some of that inventory that wasn't really serious about selling. Maybe they were just like, if I get the right price kind of a thing. And then this was our median sales price. Again, kind of like piggybacking off what you said, 224 in January of 2024, which we did have a big dip there. But we ended the year at 252.5. So that is, a substantial difference. And then this is something that we really want to keep tabs on as we're looking at where the market might go, which is our months of inventory. 2023, we still had extremely low inventory for our area. Every area has a different definition, but we had really low inventory coming into January of 2024. We had 3.6, which is still a little low for us. That's still definitely a seller's market. And then what happened was as the year progressed, our inventory actually crept up to where I think you saw in that new listing, it's like people basically our new listings went down even though our sales went up, because I think we were left with kind of the sellers that were really serious about buying, if you will. It got up to 4.4. And then we kind of dropped back down and we're at 3.7. So I think, not to do predictions again for this year, but I think for this year, it's like since, the elections are behind us, Christmas is behind us, all the things are behind us. We won't know until next month, of course, when the numbers come out, what this month actually did. But I can tell you, working in this market, being in this market, being live in this month, the buyers are really coming off the fence. So I think it's definitely a good time to reach out if you're thinking about buying or selling, because I think we're going to have we can see kind of how it started to change right there at the end of the year. And I think we're going to continue that trend of more sales, higher prices, lower inventory, and kind of swing back into that seller's market. So yeah, that's kind of how we looked at it. It was not too far off from what we predicted, other than buyers kind of held the line a little bit longer than we thought they would. But also interest rates didn't come down as much as we thought they would either. But I think this will be the year really that people are kind of moving on with their plans. So.
There's a lot of people who have been holding off, and they're kind of getting to a point where they have to do something. So it's definitely interesting because, like you, we saw a massive pickup the second that the new year started. So
yeah, exactly. So I'm super excited. We won't next week. We won't be able to do stats just yet, but I'm really excited to see how January turns out next month. So
yeah.
Well, we will see you guys next time, same place, wherever you're watching us. And we look forward to seeing you soon.